ministerial decision on the 14th of September on local government ward boundaries. The Minister rejected some proposals for some councils, including his own local council, coincidentally, but fully accepted the proposals for wards in Dumfries and Galloway despite unanimous opposition from all members. I therefore asked officers to bring an urgent paper before today's meeting to allow members to consider the outcome of the ministerial decision, and I will take this report as a late item. I will ask members to agree to a short recess to allow an opportunity to read the report. Our meeting today comes at a very challenging time for local government. Members will be aware that we are about to embark on a public consultation asking local people what services we may need to stop in order to deliver the expected £20 million of savings next year, on top of the £52 million our council has had to save since 2012. However, despite these challenges, we remain very much focused on our priorities. I was delighted that during the past month, we have seen financial closure in the contracts to invest around £60 million in phase 1 of the Dumfries Learning Town project, reversing decades of underinvestment in the school estate in Dumfries, helping provide the best start in life for our children and young people. Next month, we will see the third year of our Business Week, with around 16 events taking place across the region to support businesses as part of our commitment to build the local economy. And October will see the introduction of a living wage for our social care providers as we continue to deliver our anti-poverty strategy, protecting our most vulnerable. So there is a lot of positives to take from the work of our council, and I want to place on record my thanks to all council staff who continue to deliver for the people of Dumfries and Galloway, despite the challenges we face. Okay, moving on. Sederunt apologies.
Yes, thank you, Leader. We have apologies from Councillors Dykes, Gilroy, Yen, Peacock and Smith.
Do any members have declarations of interest? No. Item 3, the minute of the meeting on the 28th of June. This is up for approval. Move.
Second.
Okay, moving on to item 4. This is the progress of year service for children and young people. As leader of the council, I have been determined that we deliver on our priority to provide the best start in life for all our children and really make a difference for the children and young people of our region, both now and for generations to come. I therefore very much welcome the positive and reassuring findings of the Care Inspectorate from their very recent review of our local integrated children's services. Of particular note is the focus given to supporting the most vulnerable children and those children who are at risk of harm. The response of this council, with partners to the 2014 inspection and the sustained effort that has been made to deliver on our commitments, have clearly been recognised. I personally very much acknowledge the commitment of frontline staff who have responded so positively to previous concerns and to work collectively to achieve this progress. However, I am determined that this positive progress continues to be sustained and that Children's Services Plan, which will be brought to a future council, continues to set an ambitious programme for all our children and young people. Colin is here to answer any questions arising from the report. Members? Jim?
Thanks, Chair. And just to endorse your statement, Chair, I think it's a heartening report. I think we should take pride in the fact that your staff have done tremendously well in turning around what was a challenge to this council. Delighted to see this report presented to members today.
Andy?
Thanks, Leader. Like you, we saw this report at the strategic partnership on Friday, and obviously commend the huge strides that have been made. Just there's one question. 3.9, we've made reasonable progress to ensure that vulnerable children and young people and families get the help they need at an early stage. Can we get some assurance that there are plans to improve that rating?
I can give you the assurance we will continue. As I said, this is a report that's reasonable progress means just that. In my view, is we are reasonable in our progress. But yes, we won't strive for further progress at all stages, and we won't get any of these. Jane?
Leader, thank you. I echo the sentiments of other members. This is a greatly improved position and where we were a couple of years ago. Could I possibly ask you, through you, officers, to explain to us, has there been any difficulty with respect to the sharing of information that has come forward as a result of the named person legislation? There has been, I think, a certain amount of confusion, certainly amongst members and amongst some members of the public. Can I have your assurance that we will have sensible, continuing shared information without which actually you can whistle for this sort of integrated arrangements? Thank you, Leader.
Colin?
Thanks, Leader. That's a very good question. We put out a briefing to members to try to reassure you that we had acted swiftly on the basis of the court ruling around the sharing of information. We have taken some steps to take a pause in advancing sharing of information. We continue to share the way that we have in the past, which met legislative duties, but there is some question mark around whether in the future one would routinely share lots of information without having first measured and looked at whether that was necessary. So we continue to be in the position that we've been for the last 2 or 3 years, and that's the position that's brought about the improvement. There's been no change to that. We simply are not quite ready to move on to a further stage in terms of routinely sharing our information. We do have a series of meetings for our frontline staff to ensure that they're well briefed and they don't have any.
Thank you, Chair. Just to echo the sentiments of the rest of the members that we welcome the improvements in this report. I'd like to ask whether there's any risk or any fear that this plan can't be implemented in full in the new procedures because of lack of funding, lack of officers in place to actually carry out all the improvements that have been seen in the report. We've obviously got GIRFEC, but also in the not too distant future, the implementation of the named person. What risks does the officers see moving forward to make sure this plan is implemented in its entirety?
Thanks, Leader. Again, I don't think the risks that existed before were due to resource. The risks that were in place 2 or 3 years ago were in relation to how well services were working together, both within the council and with partners. We've addressed a lot of those. Those are not resource issues. What I would reassure members about too is that we continue to be very ambitious. With working within the resource that we have, we are continuing to look at innovative ways to stretch that resource and to work in a more coherent way and in a way which I would say tackles at an earlier stage the issues that can arise for some of our most vulnerable children. So I would give a reassurance that we've got a very clear plan ahead. There is no, there are no concerns for us that we're going to veer from that plan. We continue to be ambitious and working better together and in an innovative way to do the very best for our young people.
Okay, Willie?
Yeah, Chair, I'm not going to demur from what's been said in terms of the most vulnerable children. My concerns are to the ones who fall below the radar of not perhaps being abused or at risk of harm, but still are in need of support, assistance and care. And I refer to page 6 of 10, the paragraph that start with using the wellbeing indicators to enhance the quality of plans, and there had been a notable increase in multi-agency approach to planning for children and young people.
Indicate the report itself.
You're at that paragraph, Chair. The culture of getting it right for every child, and that's getting it right for every child. And in your own words, Chair, your introduction, it's for all our young children. And This is saying here it's embedded well and had improved the way staff planned to meet children's needs. However, plans were not consistently considering all wellbeing needs fully enough, and further work was needed to make plans smarter, and the definition of smarter is there. And then it goes on to say in the next paragraph, on most plans, some staff needed more support to challenge parents who were unable and unwilling to sustain improvements in their circumstances. And then it talks about occasion changing the key staff capacity issues across the service had not had some impact on the ability of service to work jointly to progress plans. It's and I've met, I've been in constant dialogue with Colin on this in terms of the kids who do fall below the radar but are still in need of that support. And indeed, only on Friday last week, I heard that children who require the support, particularly in education, are not receiving this because there is insufficient resources available to share amongst the children who require it. And indeed, there were some 100 plus children who come into the system who require that support. My question to Colin is very much along what Finlay was saying. Have we got the resources, and does it meet with the budgetary constraints that we have set in terms of the savings that we got to identify when there are more and more children coming into the scene who require this support? I fear that we have not got that, and indeed I believe there's a concession given to take this up to Christmas before any savings are identified. And it may not be possible to identify the savings against what is indeed is needed for our children in terms of support.
Colin?
Thanks, Leader. I think that particular issue falls out with this report. That's an issue that Councillor Scobie is referring to. I think the classroom assistant's been lost, and therefore I don't think that's tackled within this report at all. I would reiterate that in terms of universal support for our young people, we've got the lowest pupil-teacher ratio in mainland, second lowest pupil-teacher ratio in mainland Scotland. Resources strong here. Our attainment for all of our young people has been rising for the last 10 years consistently, and is now at a 10-year high. And in addition to that, what this report is suggesting is that we've got a real close focus on the most vulnerable. I suppose, reiterate what I've said on 3 previous occasions when I've been sitting with Lillian Kringles. We are not complacent at all. We continue to recognise there are challenges ahead. We will try to get better all of the time, and we hope to continue to come back with reports that demonstrate that we're making further progress. So we're not complacent about that.
Yeah, Alistair.
Thank you. I too concur with what previous speakers have said, and it's an excellent report, and it's heartwarming to read it. However, I would refer to page 6 of 10 in the report, the foot of the page, the penultimate sentence. Some staff needed more support to challenge parents who were unable or unwilling to sustain improvements in their circumstances. I think most people would understand that this is a difficult one, and it requires a high degree of skill, tact, diplomacy, and firmness as well. I would just like to ask how we're responding to this comment.
Okay, thanks. Could I bring in Liz Bell there, who is our Head of Children and Families?
Good morning. In relation to staff being able and skilled and equipped to undertake these challenging conversations, we maintain a proper training and development program for our staff. We have undertaken issues to do with neglect, because as you'll be aware, neglect nationally is a key issue for us, and we're looking at the assessments and the toolkits that we use to work alongside parents and support those difficult conversations. It's equally important that we have good partnerships with our colleagues in health and education to deliver in these matters. We have a programme of training that includes partners as well as single agency training. So we are working to ensure that our staff group are aware of outcomes for children, work towards those outcomes, and have the skills and the knowledge needed to have these difficult conversations with families. Thank you.
Okay, Stephen.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, it's sort of on a similar tack. It's really obviously in order to deliver these services, it's our staff that's our key asset. And there's a couple of the sort of comments in the areas where there's been reasonable or some improvement, but there's still questions about for example, the inconsistency in staff supervision. I'm looking at page 8 of 10 of the Care Inspectorate report. So this is just in terms of line managers being able to give time to focus on the staff, or not getting a regular review by the line manager. So it's really just about that, and also just the other staff support. Obviously, you've mentioned training and development programme, but I suppose there's doing that, and then there's actually keeping that as a regular and consistent across the board approach. So how are we sort of moving towards tackling that?
I agree. It's the supervision of staff that is key to this, and ensuring that there's clear decision taking and reflection, and the management overview is there in the work that is produced and the plans that are produced. So very much that we have structured our arrangements for supervision. Our partner colleagues have looked at how they supervise key staff, and you may be aware of the health visiting pathway, which clearly builds within that strategy the arrangements for supervision of staff. We have performance reporting and quality assurance, where we are picking up and ensuring that we are measuring for that level of first line and senior management involvement as appropriate in the decision making and the supervision of staff and the delivery of programmes for children and families.
Okay, can we go to the recommendations? Can we note 1 and 2? Okay, thank you. Item 5, this is annual Treasury Management Report. The Council is required to receive an annual Treasury Management Review, setting out the Council's approach to management investments, cash flows, banking, money market and capital market transactions. The Council agreed its Treasury Management Strategy for 2016-17 at the full Council on the 24th of March. The end of the year debt position of the Council was in line with that agreed strategy and is highlighted in paragraphs 3.3, 3.4, reflecting the planned increase in balances as well as the spend and approved capital programme. Paul, here to answer any questions. Sorry, Ian.
Thanks, Leader. Just to ask, after the European vote, Paul, is there any quantifiable risks at this stage that you can identify to the Treasury Management Strategy? And if so, what can you do about it?
In terms of the impact of the referendum vote on Treasury Management, we've actually taken advantage of what we've seen in terms of lower interest rates following that vote. But obviously, given the degree of uncertainty at the minute, we'll need to keep monitoring potential movements in interest rates very quickly and decide when we move back into longer term borrowing. But to date, we've actually taken advantage of the lower rates following the vote.
Ian.
Actually, this mic's a bit closer. I suppose, Paul, in general terms, when we look through this report, the Public Works Loan Board, the interest rates look a bit toxic in general when you're looking at them. And the question came into my mind, could we be approaching this in a different manner and getting better values in regards to the level of interest that's related to that compared to what's on the open market? It certainly looks like that. I think we've got security over the next 2 or 3 years in regards to having low interest rates potentially. What I would like to see, maybe it's a different report I would see, but what I would like to try to gain further information or have a greater understanding is some of this money has obviously been invested and it's offset against potential revenue consequence. So some of this money, streetlights for instance, is an obvious one to think of. We've put money into that, so we're actually kind of provided we've got a debt laid against us, we see an obvious financial well, we're being fortuitous to that point, you know, we've got financial gain from that. So I would like to have seen that. Maybe that's a different report. I would see that, Paul. But that Public Works Loan Board money looks a bit toxic to me. It looks very high in comparison to the open market. What can we do about that in general terms?
That what it looks like a very high PWLB rate actually relates to loans that have been taken out over a considerable period. They were taken out, many of them 30 years ago, 20 years ago, when interest rates were significantly higher than they are at present. We have looked at rescheduling opportunities to come out of such loans. We did that up till recently, but the current environment is one where rescheduling opportunities are very limited. But I mean, one of the things I would highlight is that the council's average interest rate is still the lowest in Scotland. So that's something we have been working very closely and work with our advisors to ensure that the borrowing we undertake is best value for the council. But we'll continue to look for opportunities to lock into lower rates going forward. In terms of the borrowing that is to support specific schemes like street lighting, they've been, as you say, undertaken on a spend to save basis, whereby the revenue savings from the scheme actually pays for the borrowing costs. But what we can do is make sure we do bring that further information back to members so there's a kind of full understanding of that in a further report.
Thanks, Leader. It'd be much appreciated, because I think it'd be the same for the new schools as they go up. There's a better kinds of revenue consequence where we should gain from that. So it'd be good to try and get that into context. It makes it a wee bit more palatable when we're looking at the level of debt that we've incurred.
Okay, Stephen.
Thanks, Leader. It's just under section 3.21 on page 34, and it's talking there about unexpected cash flows, both in the middle of December and for end of March, start of April. I don't know if that coincides with the flow of water onto the soil because of the flooding or whatever, but is there any explanation for the unexpectedness of these cash flows at those times? Thank you.
Yes, we do undertake quite detailed cash flow forecasting to make sure that we manage our treasury movements and avoid these type of issues. These were specific incidents whereby we received income in advance of when we expected. In December, it was a combination of Scottish Government money and health service money through resource transfer that came in a few days earlier than it normally would. I'd say that was corrected the following day. The one Easter was actually the settlement of a compensation sum that the council received in relation to a property issue, and we took a couple of days to actually get that.
Graham.
Thanks, Leader. It's actually on 3.9 on debt rescheduling. Ian's, my colleagues, touched a wee bit on interest rates and that. Obviously, as Paul's mentioned to the members here and members of the public will know, the interest rates are falling. They've been a low rate for a number of years across the United Kingdom. What concerns me, obviously, you're going to be monitoring interest rates and the long-term debt. What other measures are we going to take to reduce the debt in Dumfries and Galloway Council? What other drastic measures? Obviously, we need to get debt down.
I think it's important to recognise that the holding of debt is part of the funding of local government. It's always been the case. How local authorities pay for their capital expenditure is through borrowing and through meeting the borrowing costs, constant borrowing costs over a lifetime of the assets. The Dumfries and Galloway Council has got one of the lowest levels of debt of all Scottish local authorities. It's something that we've monitored very closely over the years. We will see an increase in that debt with upcoming years because the council have agreed an ambitious capital investment strategy, including the Dumfries Learning Town project. We will make sure that we continue to get best value in terms of the loans we're in and the interest rates we're paying on that debt, but we're not looking to see a significant reduction in our debt going forward, but we're making sure that we do accommodate the revenue implications of that as part of our annual budget process.
So if we want to build schools and look after roads, we need to borrow. Ian?
Thanks, Chair. I think the point that Mr Garrett makes is absolutely right. The opportunities for borrowing at such low interest rates for spend to saves, which reduces the revenue budget, is exactly the way to go at a time like this. And I think also it's the Finance Department needs to be applauded for managing to have the lowest average interest rates in Scotland.
Okay, can we go to the recommendations? Can we note 1 and 2? Sorry? Sorry, Ian, you went back in.
Just want to, if you don't mind, Leader, in regards to, because maybe a further report at some point, maybe you can point me in the right direction, but we spoke about this quite a bit, and it's in regards to the borrowing strategy, how we look at that. The different points have been brought up by different members. I think if we need to get clarity in regards to that, do we need to include it in the recommendations? We get a further report, or can we be pointed in the right direction where we see that borrowing strategy coming in front of us? Please, Leader.
Yeah, I think we just had that report. But anyway, Paul.
Yeah, I think in addition to this, we annually bring forward to full council in March each year a very detailed treasury management strategy, so we'll make sure that that's continued. I think that the one point that you made reference to in terms of spent to save schemes supported through borrowing probably isn't reflected sufficiently in that to date, so we'll try and make sure we expand that, make sure that's fully covered going forward.
Thanks, Leader. Satisfied at that.
Okay, thanks. Moving on to item 6, which is amendment standing order, scheme of administration delegation. The report asks members to consider recommendations from the review of standing orders subcommittee in relation to the amendments to the standing orders and scheme of administration and delegation to committees. Practice that on morning, saying that. The amendments reflect the deliberations and decisions of the subcommittee and address the remit given to the standing subcommittee by full council. Members? Archie.
Thanks very much, Chair. I'm just looking at 3.7.2 with regards to a motion to challenge the accuracy of a minute of a meeting shall not be competent unless intimated to the proper for at least 2 working days prior to the meeting at which the minute is being submitted as a correct record. The problem is, of course, is sometimes you only get the papers 2 days before the actual meeting, and I've got a concern that if it's about the accuracy of the minutes, that's fine. However, at the last E&I, for instance, there was issues raised about the amount of spend and money within that particular area. So I want to sort of be reassured that if it's in the accuracy of the minutes, it's not about the context.
Yeah, I think it's accuracy of the minutes, but what does flow from that is that, you know, if you have some small changes that you might, you know, the name might be wrong, it might be the wrong place, or the figure might be wrong, you might want to correct on the day rather than having to put that in 2 days beforehand. You might. So it's remember. You want to comment?
Leader, just the actual fundamental changes to minutes rather than perhaps members leaving or entering the room type of be minutes before the full council for approval. If there's any challenges to the accuracy of the decisions, that's what concern.
Okay, Dennis first.
Thanks, Chair. And it's to do with the substitute. I presume this is purely for council committees and does not apply to outside bodies such as Sederunt and IJB, because it's not always a member of the group that's on those. So I presume this is just about committees of the council.
Yeah, I think it's subcommittees.
Yes, I can confirm it's just committees and subcommittees of the council, not outside bodies.
Jim?
Yeah, thanks, Leader. It's going back to the minutes and the amendments. The report says, please note if the changes are made to this minute at the point of approval, these will be incorporated into subsequent minutes. That means until they're approved, they're draft minutes. The question's begged, well, why do we need to tell the proper officer 2 days beforehand? I've sat in here and in other committee meetings where the minutes were totally inaccurate, and the fact that, as you say, members are present when they weren't present, members weren't present when they were present, and on one occasion, I declared an interest. However, it was in Councillor Jim McComb's name in the records. Now, why should I have to give 2 days' notice to tell the proper officer that the record of the meeting is actually inaccurate? And it's the chair of the meeting that decides on the day to approve and actually signs for them that they're a true record.
I think we've got reassurance it is, you know, substantive queries regarding the 2 working days, but it might be better worded. But you can still bring up if it's a name or somebody that's changed. I'll let the officer answer that first.
I take your point, Councillor McClung. I think the intention behind it was just if a report is, a minute is before the full council for approval, if there was any fundamental changes or challenges, the accuracy of it, it was 2 days notice.
Yeah, I can fully understand why it's been done, but at the end of the day, what we are being asked to approve here is the accuracy of the minutes. And if we think that minutes are not accurate, doesn't matter in what way we don't think they're not accurate, we have to give to, if they are factually inaccurate, i.e. a member's present when they weren't, or a member declares an interest and it comes up in the name of another member, by what is said on there, we still have to give 2 clear working days, or it will be ruled incompetent. And it's not just minutes that come up in front of full council to be approved, they come up in front of every committee for them to be approved.
Well, the suggestions before members today is entirely up to yourselves whether you accept that amended standing order or not. I do take your point that accuracy of a minute can be a fundamental change, a challenge to the accuracy, or it can be simply that the member's name spelt wrongly, or it's didn't leave the room when they did, that kind of thing. So it's entirely up to yourselves how you wish to proceed with this one. But the standing orders subcommittee did discuss this in quite a lot of depth on the day, so it's put before you today just to approve.
If members want to change that, then they can go at the end. Wait to the end. It's up to I'll listen to the members. Alistair?
Thanks, Leader. I'm referring to 3.4 on page 40. Standing Order 17.4, right to attend meetings, in which it says that members may attend where there is an item of exempt business being discussed, unless the chairman requests the member to leave. Now, to me, this gives the chairman some latitude, which is probably right, but is it not the case that the chairman could be criticised for less than impartiality if there's a lack of consistency? Would the chairman be expected in this case to give a reason for asking a member to leave in these circumstances?
Yeah, I'm quite sure the chairman would be given a reason rather than staying. No, quite sure we'd have to.
Thanks, Leader. I would agree with Jim what he's saying. I think there's almost a competence issue in regards to the minute. I don't think it's a big thing to change it or leave it as it is, I should say, and not have to give the 2-day working notice. I think it just overcomplicates. 3.6, I see, removes the pack of cards, which I was delighted to see in regards to that. 3.4, paragraph 3.4, standing order 17.4. I think that's too overburdensome, to say the least. I think if a member should have a right to attend a committee of the council if they so wish. We've seen it in the past where we've used it for training sessions, so whether it's employment appeals or that type of committee which was being specific about when there's a level of training required for members, yet a member's excluded from actually going on and be able to have a level of training and an understanding. So whether it's that or other committees, I've got an issue with that particular point. Now, Claire's absolutely right when she says this is recommendations that's come from the subcommittee. This is not an officer, this is the subcommittee. I would disagree with that point there as well. For the sake of members being able to train, gain access to information, have a better understanding of what's going on, all of a sudden we're excluding ourselves from committees, which I think is pretty much absurd. And I would say that whether I was in opposition or administration. I think we should be leaving that one at home.
So what you're saying is you want to go in
I would like
to go
that.
into all employment.
I would like that
Sorry, Ian,
removed.
can I ask a question? What you're saying is, does that mean that you want the right to go into like all employment appeals, etc.?
As it is, just leave it as it is, Leader, yeah, which we have that right to do that. Any subcommittee, committee of the council, any member has a right to attend any committee of the council at any time, whether it's excluded to the public or not, doesn't matter what it is. So I think we should leave it at that. It doesn't get abused in any way, shape or form. And sometimes we use that particular privilege in regards to when it comes to training. And I think it never gets abused. It is our right to do that as it stands. We'd have to, as it stands in orders, that's certainly my clear understanding from the previous, which is Alec Haswell reiterated that on many occasions.
Do you want to come in this?
Yes, indeed, sir. As far as I'm concerned, that in my opinion, any member who wishes to do that would have to demonstrate a need to know. It's not merely a fishing expedition. and we've used that phraseology over the years. As I say, I've no problems, if if a member, I think it's as my colleague Alistair Witts has already said. I think it gives the chairman the appropriate degree of latitude. If the member in question takes exception, I don't think it's unreasonable for the chairman to say, well, can you demonstrate the need to know? Can you demonstrate to the committee or the subcommittee your need to know this, your requirement? Mere curiosity, as far as I'm concerned, Chair, or being in a fishing expedition, doesn't justify that. If it goes to a vote, well, I'll vote. I'll vote according to what I've just said for obvious reasons.
Jane?
No, thank you very much. I've reconsidered the point.
Tom?
Just going back to the right to attend meetings, the only meeting that's been suggested that members do not attend is the Employment and Appeals Subcommittee. And a very good reason for that. You're dealing with somebody's livelihood, their future employment prospects. And one of the reasons we made it a 7-man committee was to not make it daunting, rather than having the whole 21-man committee there. If you extend the right to attend, you could have 7 people sitting there deliberating on somebody's future, and another 40 members turning up to watch. And I don't think that's very fair when you're looking at somebody's employment prospects or disciplinary matters. So I think that one should stay there. It's a serious, serious matter you're dealing with, and I don't think members should be coming in and gawping, if you like.
Willie?
Yeah, Chair, it's in relation to 3.2, Standing Order 10.3.2 on the voting. And I understood this had been raised at the committee, the subcommittee, in terms of how we do record a vote and how that is kept for future reference. To me, Chair, this one, and on thinking about it, this one does sort of cross over our openness and transparency in not recording a vote that is taken. So be it its roll call on issues, without it compromising the exempt item of business. I believe it should be recorded.
Graham?
Thank you, Chair. In reference to the Employment Appeals Committee, as Chair of that committee, I think very strongly that we should not be allowing members into that committee, because we are dealing with matters of extreme confidentiality, and it could cause serious embarrassment to the appellant at the committee, and those papers should be kept on a very, very strict basis, simply to members of the committee sitting on the day, and that is very, very strongly, I feel very, very strongly about that.
Okay, just before I'll bring Alistair in, but Employment Appeals Subcommittee, we're not there as a councillor, we're there as an employer. So we've got a different role when we're in that committee. Alistair?
Thanks very much, sir. It's going back to Willie's question in relation to paragraph 3.2. You'll see the line before the paragraph, noting that the record of voting is retained in terms of legislative requirements. I raised this actually, before the last meeting of the subcommittee with the Chief Executive and his colleagues. At that point, that assurance was given. I raised it at the meeting of the subcommittee, and it was reiterated. And that line in there, as far as I'm concerned, deals with it adequately. There is a record kept, retained leader in terms of the relevant legislative requirements. And on that basis, I don't think it's unreasonable to adopt the proposal as detailed in the last part of that paragraph.
Jim?
Thanks, Chair. It's on the subject we're discussing, where it's proposed to add the right to not extend to members of employment to attend these meetings. It's probably written into documentation elsewhere, but I presume that if an appellant wants a councillor to be there to support that individual, that then this rule would not apply, because clearly there would be a declaration of interest by the member, but that member should still be entitled to go to support an appellant, and it may be that this reads that under no circumstances can a member go there. I presume it will be dealt with elsewhere, but I'd like clarity on that particular point. Yeah.
Chair, I'm not aware of the legislation behind employment and appeals hearings as such, but I would imagine the member would be there in a different capacity than as an observer to the hearing itself. Just to reiterate what Councillor McCottrey said, 17.4 is already in standing orders, not extending that right to members to attend to just solely employment and appeals hearing as an observer.
Okay, Andy.
Thanks. It's quite interesting, all this debate here about the employment and appeals sub. Nobody's mentioning the member of staff. The member of staff have a right, they have a right to privacy from people who are not there actually to form an opinion on whether their dismissal, their appeal, or whatever is right or wrong. Right? And that's in private business for a reason, and that's exactly right, and the chair of that committee makes sure that happens. They have bystanders watching on when somebody's livelihood is at stake. To me, is abhorrent and shouldn't be allowed. It's as simple as that.
George.
Thanks, Chair. Just to be in total support of what Graham, the Chair, was saying, and Tom, I quite agree with everything that's been said about that, you know, about members coming into the employment and appeals. Maybe an answer to Jim's question about whether a member can come in, would member not have to be called as a witness for either the appellant or the council or whatever, rather as actually just come in? If the member was coming in as a witness, would that be possible?
Don't know the answer. I'll ask an officer, but you know, I think it's trade unions, and it's you know, if they've got other representative defending them, but I don't know it. What comment?
Like I said previously, if a member's there in another capacity, that's a different issue. What we're seeing here is members should not be allowed to attend to observe, other than be there in another capacity that you suggested.
Okay, Jim.
It's the same point, Chair. I absolutely support what's been proposed, and I was simply making a point that I've served in appeals and grievances, it was known then for a long time, and appellants were entitled to bring someone that they chose as a support for them, knowing the capacity as a council or whatever. And I'm just clarifying that doesn't deny any appellant the opportunity to take to a committee someone they want to support them whilst they go through the process. That was just a clarity, Chair, and nothing more. I have no difficulty with the report at all.
That is the case.
Right, there's no other first time. Ian?
Well, Leader, I mean, hear the mood of the council, so I mean, I'll take it at that. I'll probably use an alternative route. But I think I chaired employment appeals for about 4 years. Never ever was it abused. I've never seen it being abused. I've sitting, I think, probably over 100 employment appeal committees, subcommittees, meetings, and it's never been abused. I think maybe I'll use an alternative route to this, but forget even if I mentioned it. But I think it's a democratic deficit that the council now has.
Okay, can we go to the recommendations? There was some questions on the 3.7.2. We maybe suggest that paragraph goes back to the ad hoc subcommittee and maybe have a look at the wording of that if you want, or do you want to suggest something just now? Archie first then, Jim.
Chair, I'd be happy for that particular wording to be taken back to the Schema Delegation Committee and perhaps moved around a little bit so it's more appropriate.
Jim?
Yeah, I would be happy for that to be looked at as well, but does that mean at this minute we are not approving the contents of 3.7, which includes 7.1 and 7.2?
No, I think if we're giving that remit to the ad hoc subcommittee to deal with that issue, we can agree on that basis. Okay? Right, is it the same point, Jim? Is it?
Yep. Yeah, Leader, it's the same point. Will we get back for us to decide on the deliberations of the wording of that one?
I think our concerns have been noted in that. I think the ad hoc subcommittee are quite capable of dealing with that, and I think we can trust them to do that. Okay, Alistair?
In other words, Leader, it's a remit with powers to the subcommittee. Thank you.
Let power go to your head.
Yeah, I think the reason that was put in, the officers asked for this because there was a challenge to a minute at the last full council, I think it was, and it wasn't possible there for the officers to give an appropriate answer. So I think maybe when we take this back, what we need to look at is where possible, if members do find something to miss in a minute, to try and inform the officers so as when the minute is then come to full council or the appropriate committee, the officers can have an answer there ready and the minute can be so amended. So that's maybe something we need to take a look at and how we reword this.
Okay, can we agree that? You want an amendment to that?
Yeah, I'm on the amendment. I'm quite happy with everything else apart from the contents of paragraph 3.7, which includes 371 and 372, until we know exactly what we're agreeing, because right at the minute, we don't know what we're agreeing in regard to the member having to go back to the proper officer to tell them that the minute is not accurate. And it's a draft minute up until the point of approval.
Okay, so there's a suggestion, and I suppose we could do that. If they agree the report minus that, and then come back to the next full council meeting with that paragraph. Okay, agreed. So you haven't got the power, Alistair. Okay, shape of the council and progress report. This is item 7. This report provides information on the progress in taking forward the actions agreed with full council for developing the shape of the council. This council asked the chief executive to work as quickly as possible to make progress across the whole programme of transformation, and I'm pleased to see that further substantial progress highlighted in the shape of the council programme and the work that has been done to deliver on service reviews, which are all crucial for our council. The chief exec and directors are here to clarify any issues. Questions, members? Archie?
Thanks, Chair. It's on 2 pages, pages 56 and 57, with regards the Director of Communities talking about the anti-poverty officer. Where are we in that particular area? And in EE&I, there's the development officer or commercial business development manager, which is under development. Where are we with that, those 2 particular places? And I also see in again EE&I that Christine Brown is the business enterprise manager, but she is now no longer with the council, and where we are in replacing that.
Thank you, Leader. I'd update the member to confirm that interviews for the anti-poverty post are due to take place at the end of this month and early October. Also, just update members that I see the Directorate Business Manager still vacant, but I can also confirm that Colin Holmes, who you heard from earlier, has been appointed to that post.
Leader, if I could just complete the question from Councillor Dryborough with regard to EEI. Christine Brown has retired and matching process has been completed, and David Gardner is now the Business and Enterprise Manager. As far as the Commercial Business Development Manager is concerned, we are considering that post in detail. We're looking at the current projections for income recovery through the trading account, and we're just measuring whether an additional overhead to that at this time is prudent. And once we have a decision on that, we'll take that forward if appropriate. The only other outstanding matter that has been picked up is Shelley Mackay has moved on to another post, and I am currently looking at combining Vehicle and Plant Service Manager and Fleet Asset Manager into one post.
Andy?
Thanks, Leader. Through you, I think I'd just like to ask the Chief if he's comfortable with the structures that are going forward, that the appropriate level of professional supervision and support is actually, arrangements are in place across the Directorate, all the Directorates, and it's a concern we've had in the past, that you know, if people leaving and new people coming in the matching process, do we always have the professional competence to actually supervise in the role they're in, or how do we actually deal with that?
I would thank the member for the question. The Joint Consultative Committee did make the point. I think we now have a structure that's fit for purpose, a structure that, like an expanding briefcase, can now contract to face the challenges that we meet. I think we're aware that we've had extensive consultation with trade unions in relation to a number of posts where we've had to engage quite firmly with them around making sure that the right person, the right skill set were in the post, and not those that were that they believed had to go in the pool, because this structure is much leaner. We have taken £2 million out in addition to the rest to get that. So there have been those challenges. I think, looking to my colleagues, I don't think we've had one substantive grievance through in the process yet, but it has delayed the process slightly as we've had to have those challenging discussions with the trade unions of ensuring we get the right people in the right post. I think what I would point to is the fact that 80% of the staff, management staff, are now under 55. So that does indicate we've now got a younger management team that will take us through the next 5 years, which is what members set us. I think actually, if we look at the way that we're having to innovate and change the jobs, actually having a fresher management team is going to be a real advantage, as we have to find new ways of working and delivering. But I do recognise that as we move forward, the structure is right, but it may have to contract in itself in relation to the challenges that we face through finance. And one of the issues we will have is coming back to members and demonstrating how the activities and management activities would be spread or reduced as members take decisions to move forward. And that will be part of an ongoing report. So I think we're closing this phase as part of the budget considerations. I think there will be another consideration of how we look at our structures as we move forward.
Stephen?
Thanks, Leader. It's just a wee bit of an update on page 51 of 72, the Enterprising Council review. Clearly, there's a due date that's been put back 15 months to June 2017. I mean, this has been presented to councillors as a potential revenue generator for the council, and sort of built into some of the prospective savings. And that was some time ago. I'm not really sure what the status of the Enterprising Council subcommittee is, or when it's going to meet. I presume it'll have to meet before the end of the year, but or November, I believe. But could I get a wee bit more detail on that? Because obviously that's kind of starting to drag on a bit, really, in terms of its planned sort of review completion date.
With regards to a meeting of the Enterprising Services Subcommittee, that will be next month. It'll be a November date, and that will be announced later this week. As far as the review is concerned, that's proceeding. Our targets for generating savings this current year are on target, and certainly for next year, we're very confident that these are going to be met.
Sorry, which month is it meeting? Is it next month or November?
Next month, November. Sorry, next month. It's in November, yes.
Graham?
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Leader. Mr. Jim, aye.
Graham. Thank you, Chair. I've got a very expensive hearing aid. I could hire it out to him maybe. It's to do with ward workers. To do with ward workers and ward manager. In view of your opening statement, how will we need as many? How many will we need? And could there be a wee budget saving there?
I'll let Derek come in to talk to you about the detail. I think if you certainly read the plan for government, the programme for government put out for consultation, the potential creation of regional structures and then devolving down into communities, the ward worker approach that members have agreed to take forward absolutely has got ahead of the game to take that forward. I think on the the basis of the numbers, I think without the ward worker approach, we would really be struggling in how we deal with a pool around the council as it currently sits. And I think that that's why Derek has been undertaking the extensive ward visits to find out exactly what it is you would like proposals brought forward to devolve down for local delegation that fits in. But certainly, I'll ask Derek to talk about the numbers.
Thank you, Leader. Quite clearly, the recent decision does conclude that there will be 12 wards, and on that basis, we need a total of 12 ward workers. We're still in that recruitment process, so quite clearly, if that presents an opportunity for saving, that is obviously going to be welcomed. So that the simple message to members today is we will not be recruiting 13 posts when we've only got 12 wards. So give members that reassurance today.
Jim?
Thanks, Leader. It's just a straightforward question. On page 56, left-hand column, you've got head of service, then you've got recruitment process for the lead community asset manager, and then you've got 3 identified for Stuart Wigton and Andy Alessio, but it doesn't say there's a recruitment process in place for the Nithsdale community assets manager, and clearly there will be community assets in Nithsdale as well.
Thank you, Leader. Pleased to confirm recruitment process is underway for Nithsdale, and we expect to be able to announce that appointment early next month. And there is a temporary employee in post, and that's been advised to members. That needs to be reissued. Happy to do so. Thank you, Leader.
McClellan.
Yeah, thanks, Leader. Touching on similar subject to Councillor Thompson. Page 47, reshaping EEI, in progress 83%. Its current due date is in 10 days' time. Are we going to meet our target, considering the original due date has already been put back? Page 49, services to young people, in progress 40% complete. It finishes on the 15th of December. Similarly, charging for services, 49%. It finishes on the 23rd of December. And perhaps the most concerning to me is implement contract manager service review, 0% progress, and it ends in the end of January next year. Are we going to meet that one?
Leader, if I could just advise on the progress of reshaping EEI. I mentioned combining the fleet asset management and the vehicle maintenance. I have a meeting with all staff involved this afternoon to advise of the new structure, and that will then put that in place. And the commercial development manager post, we will make a decision on that very shortly. So yes, I'm still confident we will meet 30.
Chair, in terms of contract management, yes, that report will be brought to KNAR members, so it is on schedule, and the work is progressing. In terms of the contract management implementation, the savings have been achieved, and the implementation is now being looked at by our new procurement managers to make sure that that's scheduled in a realistic terms, but that's more about detailed work that we're taking forward over the longer term rather than the savings themselves. We will update that for me.
What's missing, Jim?
The services for young people, page 49, 40% done, 15th of December end date.
Yep.
That one also is on schedule and progressing.
Okay, Finlay.
Thanks, Chair. This period's obviously been quite unsettling for the staff. I've been approached by a number of council workers who made applications for their early retirement to be assessed, some as far back as last November and December, and it would appear that particularly in the DG First section, these applications haven't been dealt with in a reasonable timescale. Can I have some assurances that anybody with outstanding early retirement applications are processed as soon as possible to get rid of the uncertainty?
If members take some decisions, yes. Can't let staff go unless you tell me where to cut service. And I think At PNR, we had this discussion. I think there's an issue in communicating with staff, and we'll get back to them in the process. But I can't conclude the process until members are able to come forward with services we wish to reduce. The staff that you are referring to do a job, and unless we reduce that service, they can't be let go. So I think we did agree at PNR that we certainly need to look at how we communicate to all the staff to make sure that we get back to tell them. But we're at the point now that we cannot let further staff go that have applied without actually reductions to service being agreed by members. So we'd need to then look forward to the future budget process and how we would release those staff, because most of the staff that was in the PNR report do relate to catering, cleaning, and low-paid staff, and also to roads operatives. So therefore, we're not able to move them forward. But we have accepted that we need to now re-communicate to everybody who has applied, and we have given that guarantee done. But to move forward from this point, we will have to reduce service. There is, unfortunately, no other way to let these people go.
Okay, can we go to the recommendation? Can we note 1, agree 2 and 3? Okay, moving on to item 8, which is the Events Champion Annual Report. As members will be aware, we have a number of councillors who carry out champion roles. As members will be aware, we have a number of councillors who carry out champions roles in a voluntary capacity for the council. And as an administration, we believe it is important to receive reports on the work they do. At a previous full council meeting, we had a report on the work of our Armed Forces Champion, and I'm pleased that today we have a report from the council's Events Champion and the success and progress that has been achieved. Unfortunately, Colin has had to tender his apologies for the meeting today, but he's here in spirit and judging by the report and photographs as well. However, I think the report very much speaks for itself and highlights the exceptional work taking place across the council to champion festivals and events. The work of the council has greatly assisted in helping cement Dumfries and Galloway's reputation as an internationally renowned destination for rural events, attracting new visitors to the region and supporting our council's #1 priority to build the local economy. The role of the Events Champion as a figurehead ensures that the support of the council for these events and festivals, primarily through our major events and festival strategy and associated funds, is fully recognised by the organisations who benefit and the wider community. We cannot underestimate how important events and festivals are to our region, and also the outstanding quality and variety provided, the length and breadth of Dumfries and Galloway. We should be proud of the role we play as a council in supporting the many excellent organisations responsible for that success. So I want to place on record the thanks of our Events Champion to Ian Barr, our Principal Officer for Events, for the significant work he undertakes to deliver our strategy and to support the role of Events Champion. We should also recognise that supporting events cuts across many departments. Therefore, I want to thank all staff involved in what is a highly successful strategy. Although Colin isn't able to be here today, I am pleased to inform members that on Thursday there is a debate in the Scottish Parliament on Scotland's position as a perfect stage for events. Colin will be speaking in that debate to highlight our unique and successful strategy and to once again promote Dumfries and Galloway as Scotland's location of choice for so many fantastic festivals and events. As we go forward and the current strategy comes to an end, I know all members look forward to the next steps and the development of a new strategy to build our success and achieve a reputation for our region as a destination for international events and festivals. Ian Barr is here to answer any questions, I think. Is he? No? That'll be Derek. Is he busy with an event, is he? Okay, members. Archie first.
Yeah, thanks very much. Just to commend the report and just to say that on page 63, the picture on the right-hand side is not Captain Mannering.
Alistair?
Yes, well, I'm not going to comment on that, Leader. Just simply to say that I'm sure your comments, resonate with if not all, the overwhelming majority of members in the chamber, and I would like to think, in fact, that these will be incorporated into the official record of this meeting. Thank you.
Okay, we'll do that. Thanks very much. We've considered. Okay. Right, item 9, which is a notice of motion referendum, report by the Director of Corporate Services. The next item is a motion from Councillor Diggle and Councillor Crothers. And I asked Councillor Diggle if he wants to move his motion, then Councillor Crothers if he wishes to second the motion. Can I just say to members, this week this council will begin consultation with the public on how we are to achieve £20 million of savings on top of the £52 million of savings we've had to find since 2012. That process we're about to embark on will involve asking the public what services they want us to stop delivering, not trim, but stop, has been highlighted by the Chief Executive. We won't know the government's final grant settlement until December, but given previous financial settlements, we can expect yet more disproportionate cuts to the council. We'll then have just 2 months to deliver a balanced budget that minimises impact on the frontline services. I am as opposed as anyone to the distraction of yet another independence referendum from the Scottish Government, but I'm equally appalled at the botched decision of the UK Government to hold an EU referendum, which backfired in the face and will not only ultimately lead to the UK leaving the EU, but has caused the recent upsurge in calls for another independence referendum. But I think the public will be appalled if, given the huge challenges we face as council, councillors are spending their time debating motions such as this when every single one of us should be working night and day to deliver a balanced budget that protects services as best we can and focuses relentlessly on supporting our staff to deliver our council's priorities. So with all due respect to all members, views in the consultation, you've made your point. Could I suggest that maybe we focus on what matters to the people we are here to serve, and we note the content of the report and get on with the day job running the council? Peter?
Thank you, Leader. This will probably take about maybe maximum half an hour of the council's time. It has been determined competent by the officials, and therefore I would like to have my 5 minutes and propose this motion. Thank you, Leader. Good morning, councillors. Today I propose the following motion. If the British Government grants the Scottish Government the power to hold another Scottish independence referendum, then Dumfries and Galloway Council demands that the British Government allows Dumfries and Galloway the right to hold its own referendum at the same time on whether or not Dumfries and Galloway should remain in the United Kingdom or leave the United Kingdom. This will be a once-in-a-generation event, and the result will be respected by all. Now, a fair amount has been written in the press about this motion, and some have misunderstood its aim. So let me tell me what this motion is not designed to do. It is not designed to take Dumfries and Galloway out of Scotland, and it is not designed to make Dumfries and Galloway an independent state. It is, however, designed to give the people of Dumfries and Galloway the democratic right to decide whether or not Dumfries and Galloway should remain part of the United Kingdom or leave the United Kingdom should another Scottish independence referendum be held. In the September 2014 Scottish independence referendum, 28 out of 32 Scottish councils voted no to the question, should Scotland be an independent country? That is 87.5% of Scottish councils want to remain within the United Kingdom. A map is now being displayed showing the result of the independence referendum by council, Red are the noes, blue are the yeses. Only 4 of the 32 Scottish councils voted yes to leave the United Kingdom. They were Dundee, Glasgow, North Lanarkshire and West Dunbartonshire. It is difficult to see where they are. Dumfries and Galloway voted 65.7% to remain in the United Kingdom. I urge you to support this motion for the following reasons. In the event that the SNP argues successfully that in the interest of democracy, there should be another Scottish independence referendum, because Scotland faces being removed from the European against its will, it follows that Dumfries and Galloway must be offered the same democratic right for a referendum if it is facing the prospect of being removed from the United Kingdom against its will. As an overwhelming majority of Dumfries and Galloway voters voted to stay within the United Kingdom, we owe it to our constituents to fight for their democratic right. 65.7% of Dumfries and Galloway voted to stay in the United Kingdom in 2014. 62% of Scottish voters voted to remain in the European Union in 2016. The First Minister has set a precedent in determining the benchmark as to when a referendum should take place. It would be democratically unacceptable if Dumfries and Galloway faced the prospect of being taken out of the United Kingdom against its will. The SNP government does not have a mandate to take Dumfries and Galloway out of the United Kingdom against its will. I would like to see this or a similar motion presented to all the other 31 Scottish councils. Some may support it, some may reject it. However, if the 2014 Scottish independence result is an indication of how people would vote in a repeat referendum, then adopting such a motion would prevent 28 Scottish councils facing the prospect of being taken out of the United Kingdom against their will. Over the weekend, Nicola Sturgeon was quoted in the Scottish Herald as saying, "Decisions about Scotland should be taken by those that live and work here." I presume that that also applies to Dumfries and Galloway. No doubt she would agree if Dumfries and Galloway residents objected to being told how to run their lives by Glasgow, Dundee, North Lanarkshire and West Dunbartonshire councils. It would be good to see Dumfries and Galloway Council showing the lead in taking the independence issue off the table and then ending this extended period of uncertainty that the SNP government have created, which is no good for business, it is no good for jobs, and it is no good for the future prosperity of Dumfries and Galloway. Let's allow Dumfries and Galloway and Scotland to move on. I commend this motion to the Council.
Ian.
I would formally second that, Leader, in regards to it being a motion that's placed and it's formal, it's on the table. I've not written anything, I haven't scripted anything, so, I mean, but I would like to support Peter to the utmost, to say the least. I'm proud to be Scottish and I'm proud to be British. Born in Ecclefechan and raised in Ecclefechan, haven't moved that far away from that area. Represent a lot of people, as we all do within Dumfries and Galloway. We make decisions on a daily basis in regards to the democratic support within Dumfries and Galloway. I think what's being placed by Peter in particular in regards to this motion is to ask the Council to listen, debate, constructively debate what's being put in front of them. Peter's got a written copy put out for those who would like to see it or not in regards to it. We need to talk about this. We need to make sure that we're standing up for the people of Dumfries and Galloway. And it's not about, Peter's absolutely outlined it, it's not about removing Dumfries and Galloway from Scotland. It's anything but that. It's about starting a conversation in regards to, we've had an independence referendum a couple of years ago. Now we'll be saying that there will be another one within a couple of years. Scotland, and we as a council, as representatives, we need to make it clear it has to come to a stop. There's too much uncertainty. It's affecting the economy, business, and even the social economic factors across Dumfries and Galloway and the wider Scotland. This is something that I think the council really need to support. So, Chairman, as far as I'm concerned as the seconder, totally support everything that Peter's just put forward. He's leading this, he's making a great job of it, and it's constructive. It's absolutely constructive what he's put forward. It's about a point of debate. Thanks, Leader.
Yeah, Archie.
Thanks very much, Chair. I mean, you said it at the start that we need to get on with the business of running the council and get away from this constitutional reform nonsense that keeps on going on and causes us a whole load of issues within our wards. I mean, when you look at the budget setting process of where we're going to go with education, children, young people, lifelong learning, the poverty issues that we're dealing with, the social care issues to children and young people, not to mention that, of course, there would be a cost to running something like this as well. And I think people in this region want to see a steady ship, and a steady ship run by a local authority in this particular area that gives them the confidence to actually move on. I think that I'm prepared to put an amendment forward, Chair, that this council's get on with the day-to-day running of the region, ensuring that the best services can be provided within the budget restraints we have from the Scottish Government, and look at how we can maximise income to ensure that this can happen. And I will so move that.
Either.
Chair, I'm sure there was a politician who sat down a wee while ago and thought that he was actually going to strengthen Britain's position in Europe. And he didn't design for us to come out of Europe. And the British public went the wrong way, in his view. If we don't get the results we want, it seems to be that we move to subsidiarity and we go on and on and on. Does that mean to say that we could see the breakup of Dumfries and Galloway because one ward might vote one way, one ward might vote another? If we end up with this motion being supported and the look for a local referenda, what are we going to actually end up with? Will we be out of Scotland? Yes, that is a possibility. Will we have Scots law or English law? Will our education system follow our Scottish education, or will it be the English system because we're moving into a UK, is it? Or will it be some different governing body? Because it can't be UK living wage. Which living wage will we pay? Will our social workers be actually able to work because south of the border they have different rules compared to north of the border? Even in Councillor Diggle's own ward, will the local curlers actually be able to represent Scotland? Will they be able to play in the Grand Match? No, because they're not part of Scotland. This is ill thought out. What we should be doing if we're sending any letters to any UK government is saying, let's not have a referenda in the next 2 or 3 years because we can't go beyond the life of this Parliament. That's what the motion should have been saying. No more referenda.
Jane?
Thank you. Well, Leader, I actually, as an independent, beg to differ, in fact, from the last two speakers. And I don't think we should be particularly apologetic. We have actually solemnly debated a lot sillier motions than this one. Leader, also actually important, as well as services, which I totally agree with you, also important are relationships with our neighbours and with Europe. Extremely important. I'd like to say that the Scottish Government opened this Pandora's box of referendums. We didn't. And they must therefore, I think, accept the fact that now that there is an opportunity, people think about it. They think about the options that are available to them. I'm sure that Shetland has considered the option of declaring UDI with its oil. Sure they have. There's absolutely no reason at all why we shouldn't consider this, this motion. The UK government followed suit in terms of referendums. Now, what about us? Scottish Government has made great play of the fact that the UK plans to drag Scotland out of the EU against its will. And thus far, Dumfries and Galloway's democratic choice through the referendums have been pro-EU and pro-remaining part of the UK. I've no idea whether that will continue. But currently we are at a moment, I think, of immense uncertainty. Scottish Government has not made its plans clear for EU membership or indeed for currency, and that, dare I say it, we have not even begun to deal with Brexit. Everybody talks about there's been no effect on Brexit. We haven't started it. We haven't done it at all. We haven't even considered the first part of the first steps. I think that this motion actually affords our region an excellent choice, an excellent chance to take stock. Tactically, it's a great idea. We leave our options open. So I'm perfectly happy to support it, and I will be doing so.
Okay, Andy?
Thanks, Leader. Like you, I think there's more important things this council could be spending this time on at this moment in time. I didn't quite pick up everything what Archie said there, but I've got a kind of, that was an amendment for Archie, I've got a kind of counter amendment, and that's basically the council notes the terms of the motion proposed by Councillor Diggle, seconded by Councillor Carruthers, considers its terms highly speculative, because that's what it is, given the information currently available, and recognises Dumfries and Galloway is an important part of the ancient nation of Scotland, and agrees that any future decision on the Constitution should be made on a national basis.
Okay, right. Can I suggest, Archie, that come up with, maybe note the terms of the motion, note the significant challenges facing our council in protecting frontline services at a time of budget pressures, and agrees that all councillors should focus their time and efforts on continuing to deliver on our council's priorities.
Happy with that, Chair.
Well, that's a counter amendment for me if I've got a second.
Oh, sorry, Rob. Sorry.
Thank you, Leader. You wouldn't expect me to resist the temptation afforded by this opportunity, would you? I'm happy to second Councillor Ferguson's amendment. I want to make one actually friendly and pleasant suggestion to colleagues who brought the original proposal. I did think, incidentally, that Jane Maitland had a lot of sensible things to say about some aspects of this situation, although I can't for the life of me understand the logic of them leading to supporting the proposal in front of us. It's simply this. Councillor Diggle referred in the papers and in the chamber to mandate. And there's been a great deal of talk about who's got mandates, who doesn't have mandates. What I would suggest constructively and pleasantly to Councillor Diggle is that if he is serious about a mandate, then I don't think it's letting anyone into a secret to suggest, incidentally, that we're not going to have a referendum before May 2017. He should put it in a manifesto. He should stand on the basis of it. If he's returned and his colleagues are returned, even to the point, Leader, where he's in your seat, then he has a mandate for this proposal or anything else that he wants to suggest. And he might take the time also to consider all of the very sensible problem points that have been brought up by Councillor Hislop, whom I was almost on the point of offering a membership card to until he got to the end of his peroration. But I think that, that there is a perfectly sensible, reasonable point there. This seeks to fundamentally change the policy of this council. Go and get a mandate for it, come back in a year's time, and we'll talk.
Okay.
You second it? Yeah. Okay, we've got an amendment on the table and a counter amendment first. The amendment is as proposed by Councillor Dryborough and seconded by the Leader, and the counter amendment is as proposed by Councillor Ferguson and seconded by Councillor Davidson. I'll just read through each of them again, if that's okay. The amendment is 1, to note the terms of the motion. 2, note the significant challenge facing our council in protecting frontline services at a time of budget pressures, and agrees that all councillors should focus their time and efforts on continuing to deliver our council priorities. That's the amendment. The counter amendment reads that the council notes the terms of the motion proposed by Councillor Diggle, seconded by Councillor Carruthers, considers its terms highly speculative given the information currently available to the council, recognises that Dumfries and Galloway is an important part of the ancient nation of Scotland, and agrees that any future decision on the Constitution should be made on a national basis. So we'll proceed to the vote.
We're going to the vote.
It's a point of information.
Yep. Well,
It's a point of information, which is that Dumfries and Galloway actually was part of Northumbria before it became part of Scotland. Thank you.
okay.
Okay. Leader,
Amendment. Amendment.
Deputy Leader.
Leader, please, I'm asking for point information. I've had my
No,
hand up since
it's
before
too late.
G.
We've started the vote.
In regards to, we need to know exactly what we're voting on. Is
Well,
it-
you've had the
Listen,
amendment.
I've been
you've had
asked
the
by
co-
group members.
Sorry,
What's
Ian.
been said?
Ian.
Can you please answer that?
Ian, we've started the vote, so please don't interrupt again. It's amendment against the counter amendment. Counter amendment against the amendment. Amendment.
Amendment.
Councillor Bell. Councillor Blake.
Amendment.
Councillor Brodie. Councillor Carruthers.
Abstain.
Councillor Karen Carruthers.
Abstain.
Councillor Carson.
Amendment.
Councillor Collins. Councillor Davidson.
Counter amendment.
Councillor Dempster.
Amendment.
Councillor Dick.
Counter amendment.
Councillor Diggle. Councillor Dryborough.
Amendment.
Councillor Ferguson.
Counter.
Councillor Foster.
Amendment.
Councillor Geddes.
Amendment.
Councillor Groom.
Abstain.
Councillor Hislop.
Amendment.
Councillor Lever.
Amendment.
Councillor McCautry.
Amendment.
Councillor McClung.
Counter.
Councillor McComb.
Amendment.
Councillor McCutcheon.
Abstain.
Councillor McGregor.
Amendment.
Councillor McKee.
Amendment.
Councillor Maitland.
Amendment.
Councillor Mail.
Amendment.
Councillor Marshall.
Amendment.
Councillor Martin.
Amendment.
Councillor Nicholl.
Amendment.
Councillor Ogilvie.
Amendment.
Councillor Prentice.
Amendment.
Councillor Scobie.
Amendment.
Councillor Stitt. Councillor Syme.
Amendment.
Councillor Thompson.
Counter amendment.
Councillor Tuckfield.
Abstain.
Councillor Witts.
Counter amendment.
Councillor Wood.
Counter amendment.
Councillor Wiper.
Abstain.
The amendment is carried 24 votes to 8 with 9 abstentions. Therefore, the amendment will now be placed against the motion. Does anyone want me to repeat?
I don't want to repeat, but does the mover and the seconder of the original motion not get the chance to say a final couple of words in regards to process?
Okay, Peter.
Thank you, Leader. Just taking Labour's amendment in its entirety, can I just point out that there is absolutely nothing in my motion that stops this council carrying out its duties on behalf of the people of Dumfries and Galloway.
Ian.
I mean, as a seconder, I would emphasise what I said earlier. This is about debate, constructive as much as we possibly can. We believe very strongly as a group, and our political views is that we keep the United Kingdom together. We'll emphasise that and try and attempt to keep the United Kingdom together at all every opportunity we get. This is about having a constructive debate and absolutely not about removing Scotland from the rest of the Dumfries and Galloway from Scotland, sorry. We want to emphasise that, and again, just goes back to the point of Peter.
Okay. Leader,
Amendment.
Deputy Leader,
Amendment.
Councillor Bell, Councillor Blake,
Amendment.
Councillor Brodie, Councillor Ian Crothers,
Motion.
Councillor Karen Crothers, Councillor Carson,
Amendment.
Councillor Collins, Councillor Davidson,
Amendment.
Councillor Dempster,
Amendment.
Councillor Dick,
Amendment.
Councillor Diggle, Councillor Dryborough,
Amendment.
Councillor Ferguson,
Amendment.
Councillor Foster,
Amendment.
Councillor Geddes,
Amendment.
Councillor Groom,
Motion.
Councillor Hislop,
Amendment.
Councillor Lever,
Amendment.
Councillor McCottree, Councillor McClung,
Amendment.
Councillor McComb,
Amendment.
Councillor McCutcheon,
Abstain.
Councillor McGregor, Councillor McKee,
Amendment.
Councillor Maitland,
Motion.
Councillor Mail,
Amendment.
Councillor Marshall,
Amendment.
Councillor Martin,
Amendment.
Councillor Nicholl, Councillor Ogilvie,
Amendment.
Councillor Prentice,
Motion.
Councillor Scobie,
Amendment.
Councillor Stitt, Councillor Syme,
Amendment.
Councillor Thompson,
Amendment.
Councillor Tuckfield,
Motion.
Councillor Wicks,
Amendment.
Councillor Wood,
Amendment.
Councillor Wiper.
Motion.
The amendment is carried 20 votes to 9 with 4 abstentions.
Okay, moving on to item 10, which is the minutes for approval, noting. Can we, children, young people and lifelong learning, 30th of June.
Happy to move. Happy to second.
Communities, 16th of August.
Happy move. Happy to second.
Employment Appeals Sub, 27th of May.
Happy to move. Second.
Chair,
Yep. Well,
just on that minute, and it was recorded at the last meeting that indeed this came before us at the last meeting, and I moved that it was not an accurate minute. I would still say it's not an accurate minute, and it does not record a vote that was taken at the Employment Appeals Subcommittee in terms of referring the matter back to the Employment Appeals
sorry,
Subcommittee.
can you less noise, please? Excuse me. Excuse me, there's a meeting going on.
Here, Chair, that this does not record a vote that was taken at that committee meeting of the 27th of May with regards to referring the matter of review of the disciplinary procedures to the Employment Appeals Committee. There was a vote of 5-2 taken at that, and it's not recorded. Therefore, in my opinion, it's not accurate, Chair.
I remember you saying that, Willie, and I think it was somebody going to come back, was there, regarding that? Yeah.
Leader, my recollection from the discussion at Employment Appeals Subcommittee is that this would come to our committee.
We'll defer that minute at the moment. Okay. if it's to go to P&R, if that was a decision taken.
Chair, Chair,
Okay.
that wasn't that
Chair,
decision.
it's on a point of what the fact of the matter was there was a vote taken at the meeting of the 27th of May, and my contention is it is not an accurate minute, not whether the employment appeals thereafter considered something. It was at this meeting of the Employment Appeals Subcommittee, the 27th of May, there was a vote taken and it is not recorded. It's for the accuracy of the minute. It's not accurate.
So, votes aren't recorded at employment appeals, but what you're saying is this is nothing to do with that employment appeal. It's to do with a vote being taken on a review of the disciplinary action. So that wasn't about the employment appeals, it was about the Tom?
Yeah, Willie's quite correct, because there was a matter raised during the process, but this was to do with the procedures rather than the result. Willie's not talking about the vote that was taken on that. We did have a discussion about procedures. We took a vote on that. I think it was, so it's two folk voted one way and the rest voted another way, but what would refer back to the main committee for consideration. And that, these matters were duly considered by the main committee when we reviewed the whole setup of the disciplinary procedure. There needs to be a bit in there stating that a vote was taken on which things to refer back to the main committee for consideration. It doesn't reflect on the outcome of the appeal. It's a procedural matter.
Right, to make that amendment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chair, in fairness, that is quite correct. A vote was taken. That was referred to a further meeting of the Employment Appeals, which met, I think, a week past on Friday, shortest meeting in the history of this council, because we referred it to another body, and it will come back through P&R, the outcome of all that. But as far as outcome, as far as the result of that Employment Appeals Committee is concerned, the decision is properly recorded. But they are quite right. There was a vote taken, but it's not included in the minutes. So,
Okay,
if that
so
can be included.
okay.
I would approve
The
it.
accuracy of the minutes we're on about here. It's not about any subsequent decisions on that. So it's we'll change that to record that there was a decision taken on that, not in the actual employment appeal.
Chair,
Licence and
will that
panel.
come, Chair, will that come back to the next full council meeting, or for
No, this is in the accuracy of the minutes, and we're going to include that in the minute.
Right.
We'll adjust that decision. That decision was taken in the minute. Licensing panel, 2nd of June.
Happy to move, Chair.
Second.
5th of July.
Happy to move, Chair.
18th of July.
Happy to move, Leader.
Second.
19th of August.
Happy to move, Chair.
6th of September.
Happy to move, Chair.
Local review body, 12th of May.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
9th of June.
Happy to move. Happy to second.
Pension sub, 25th of August. Plan applications, 21st of June.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
23rd of August.
Happy to move.
Second. Private reverie, Leader, forgive me.
Review of standing orders subcommittee, 18th of July.
Happy to move.
Seconded.
Social work services, 23rd of June.
Happy to move.
Leader.
But
Leader. Yep.
Who's speaking?
Yeah.
I couldn't see you.
I know, sir. Thanks very much. I know I've lost weight, but not that much. My understanding at item 7, about the NHS health change programme, the actual decision was it wasn't in the scheme of delegation, it wasn't in the delegation for that committee. And I thought we had recommended that it might be referred to full council as a matter of urgency or something similar. That's not reflected in the minute.
Certainly not my recommendation.
you know, this was an NHS report, and what was actually agreed is what is reflected in the minute.
Jane?
Well, since I'm down to second it, I would say that I am unable to second it because I believe that the correct, as far as it goes, there is an omission, which actually I raised with officers, quite clearly, raised with officers at the time when it came out through e-gender. So I feel that we recommended the matter be referred to the full council as an urgent item of business, and I did raise it with officers at the time.
No recording of this.
Do you want me to propose that then? And we can just vote
Well,
on
there's
it.
no recording. So, you know, I think that's what Ted was saying as well in the minute.
Yes, I think what is actually recorded in the minute is inaccurate, but it was quite a debate on this matter, but it was agreed that we should not be in a position to recommend anything.
Leader, can I come back in? Yeah, yeah. I mean, Ted's right, and technically, but there was also great discussion about how that should be dealt with in the future. Because if it clearly wasn't in the delegations for social work committee, then it had to be come back and suggested full committee or PNR or somewhere else to be discussed and actually get a home for it for such consultations in the future.
I think what we're here to do is record the accuracy of the minute, and that, you know, there's no other record apart from that.
Yeah, Chair, to what both Andy and Jane was saying, then there was a motion moved by Jane and Andy. First one used was to refuse to take it amended, and the minute does not reflect the accuracy of that meeting. What was agreed clearly that the issue be referred back to the full council, as being said by both me and Jane.
Okay, right. With that change, then, can we agree the minute? Thank you.
We can't have a full council debate in something that's already decided. Consultation's ended. I'm quite happy to take forward Councillor Ferguson's point of view about bringing forward proposals on how we deal with future consultation. But if that minute stands, I can't competently call a full council on a matter that's no longer debatable. So I'm just, the way that you're suggesting that minute reflects. So I'm not trying to cut across members, but if that minute stands, you'd be saying that we have a full council meeting on a matter that's already not able to be decided. So I'm just, if what you're saying was that we needed to sort out future consultations would be treated by full council, then that is a matter that can be taken forward. Because otherwise I'll be in a position that you've asked me for a full council, I've got to decide. I mean, I'm just trying to be clear on is that what members are saying was agreed at that committee? So
We'll agree the change in a minute. Okay, we've agreed the change in a minute.
I'm just wanted to ask, that was the 31st of March. Would that not have been the case? The consultation wasn't finished at that point. So even though you couldn't take something forward now, at that point we could have asked for that to go to full council, and therefore it would be competent. The fact that it's now the consultation's finished means it's redundant.
Okay, thanks for that, Ian. That's helpful. Thank you. Moving on to any other business, I did say that there's a late report. This is about the review of the electoral arrangements. I'll take 10 minutes and everybody can have a 10-15 minutes. Everybody can have a look at it. Then come back. Or is there, I don't know if there's lunch, is there? There is lunch here, so do you want to stop for half an hour? Okay. Okay, members, thanks for coming back. As members are aware, we unanimously opposed the Boundary Commission's proposals for Dumfries and Galloway for a number of very valid reasons. In particular, the process that was followed by the Commission itself. I think it's disappointing that the Minister has ignored this opposition, in particular, given the fact he has taken a completely unprecedented step of accepting some recommendations of the Commission but rejected others on the grounds of local opposition. It's a matter for members to consider how they wish to take the issue forward, but I can inform the meeting that COSLA have contacted me to ask whether we wish them to continue to raise their opposition to the plans. That's one. We've also been contacted by other council leaders asking whether we remain interested in working with other councils regarding possible legal action over the changes, not least because of the selected nature of the ministerial decision. It's certainly the view of the administration that we should continue to express our opposition to the plans for Dumfries and Galloway and urge COSLA to pursue the matter on our behalf. We also believe that we should renew contact with other councils as a matter of urgency to consider the viability of legal action. This was being led by East Renfrewshire Council, and in first instance, I think we should contact them to ask whether they are pursuing the matter and offering our continued support. We need to find the details whether they're still continuing doing that. But members, you've got the paper, you know the decision, but I thought it was important that we did finalise it. Okay, Alistair?
Thanks, Leader. As far as I'm concerned, we should in fact be down the route that you've flagged up. Foolish question, perhaps, but I'll ask it anyway. Obviously, we would need to have some indication of the likely prospects of success before we commenced in what no doubt would be an expensive legal process. I take it, Leader, that arrangements would be made to have an opinion from senior counsel produced, giving some indication of that, if that's not already been done, sir.
I think that's why I was talking about East Renfrewshire and see where they are in the legal process, see what stages and if they are carrying it forward, and probably get second-hand, outcome of that is first. If we go forward on basis. Yep.
For the record, sir, I'm supportive, as I said.
Jane?
Thank you very much, Leader. Yes, I absolutely agree with you. I noticed that the Minister sent us a letter signed yours, Scotland, but he doesn't actually give detailed reasoning for why he has taken the view that he took. He does tell us that he's considered our comments carefully. I think it would be quite helpful if we had some reasoning. If he's considered them, then somewhere there must be some reasoning. And yes, I would suggest that we actually ask for that reasoning.
Yeah, I think it's something to explore as well, but I think we state our objections and where we are. And there are, for example, what I can make out, and I look at the borders, it's basically the same as objections that we were putting forward. You're right, we need to find out some of the detail behind that.
Thank you, Leader. I would concur entirely with Jane. I think that there's 5 local authorities that haven't been affected by this at all, and we need to understand why they've been left as they are. I think the islands have to be left as they are, but the other 2, certainly, their views have been taken on board, where ours haven't. We need to understand why that disparity.
Okay, Jim?
Thanks. I think I could maybe answer Councillor Geddes' question for you. The chance of success is no chance at all if you take Scottish Government's approach and attitude towards the Dumfries and Galloway Council. And it doesn't take a wizard to work out what's going on here. Look at what's happening with the police, the fire service. Look at the investment in the region. Scandalous, and you could catalogue them. I'm thinking putting an application to Guinness Book of Records for the longest traffic lights in the world, standing in one place in my ward. During the whole of the A9, no bothering themselves whatsoever with the A75. We're losing social work. We've just heard earlier, 10-year best attainment of pupils in this region. And you watched the telly last night, there are so-called experts saying it's time that local government lost the right to deal with education that was centralised and put in bodies. I would suggest to members that maybe at the end of every council term there's a photo opportunity. And I would suggest that you ought to turn up to it and get photos taken, because you're going to the history books. You'll be listed with extinct species like the dodo. That's where this council will land, an extinct species, and that will be the legacy the Scottish government, this SNP government, has given to Dumfries and Galloway. They should be absolutely ashamed of their approach and the attitude and the way they deal with locally elected members and local government in this region.
I think that it's expanded the debate a little bit. Sean?
Just following on from what Alistair says with regards to if we are going to seek legal advice, the fact that it comes into force on the 30th of September for the elections on the 4th of May, we need to know what the implications are of that. If we're actually taking legal action, does that affect, the bond changes, so it's just got to go ahead? I can't see how there can be any recourse if you're successful once the elections have taken place.
So what are you saying, give up? That's part of it. Find out exactly, get the whole picture. Where other councils are, what COSLA is doing. COSLA is actually still pursuing this at the moment. Okay, there's lots of hands up here. Jim first, Jim McClung.
Yeah, thanks, Leader. I'm going to echo the views of everybody apart from Councillor Dempster. I don't think it was particularly helpful to go off the way we did. We've got to consider this and try and be cool, calm and collected about it. I don't disagree with some of his sentiments, I disagree with a lot of it. However, at the end of the day, we are where we are, as has been said numerous times in this chamber. My real question is, it's coming into effect on the 30th of September 2016. At the end of the day, it may well be that we have to go with what we've got. I would also like it noted that it wasn't the Scottish Government that decided the changes, it was the Electoral Commission. Councillor Dempster's party was responsible for the failing to change of the boundaries for the last UK elections because they didn't accept. At the end of the day, the Boundaries Commission make their recommendations, and how they make their recommendations, I would argue with them how they made their recommendations. But at the end of the day, what I would like to know, as a member that's currently standing in the current Ward 2, and the new Ward 2 looks as if it's going to be a different size, and it covers a far different area, just to confirm that if it goes ahead, the member for the new Ward 2 will be a member of both Wigton Area Committee and Stewart Area Committee.
No, I don't think that's up to this committee to, what this paper's about. This paper's about, what's happened during the review of the Boundary Commission's proposals. Boundary Commission's proposal, what's different, Jim, is the Boundary Commission's proposal. This is the first time I've known ever that a minister stepped in and changed them. That's the very first time I've ever known that to happen, and that's the difference in this. Andy?
I'll give way. Okay, obviously Jim's perfect, but come back in later if you'll let him. Absolutely. I'm just looking for some clarity of the staff who oversee the elections here. Is there not some legislation that has to be, things have to be in by a certain date for the elections to take place in May? There's a timetable that has to be stuck to. Can we get some clarity on that? Because if that's a chocolate biscuit, fine, Leader. If that's the case, then waiting for what COSLA or someone else is going to do is a moot point, because we're going to miss the legal deadlines we have to come to, and I'd just like some clarity on that, when those deadlines are.
That'll be up to the Scottish Government ministers and that. The COSLA, we did ask them to take it forward. What we're asking them to continue to take it forward. They're asking our, whether we wish for them to do that on our behalf. And the feeling I'm getting back is yes, they do. The other thing we're following through is, the councils, whether we're asking East Renfrewshire, so and see where they are with the legal process, then we can come to some kind of decision on that.
With respect, Leader, I'm asking a legal or a technical question of the officers involved in the election process. Right? What are the timetables, and how tight are those timetables? And so I'm not saying we don't speak to COSLA. Right? What I'm saying is, but there needs to be a cut-off time, because they can't go on talking about it forever and ever and ever. As anybody who's been at COSLA, actually they're quite good at keeping talking about things and not doing much. So I'm asking the technical question, right? Is what are the timescales, right, for the legal processes to allow the elections to go ahead in May next year? That's my question.
Thank you, Leader. The most imminent piece of work that we've got to do is actually the polling scheme with all the wards, and that is due in a similar time scale, and we've got a meeting next week with the assessor over that. So that work will just have to press on the basis of the information that we've got at the moment.
So that won't stop, but in future, it all depends on if there's any changes or decisions within that.
If it is helpful, I had the briefest of conversations with East Renfrewshire yesterday, and I was at the original meeting with Council when opinion was sought, and they're seeking opinion as to whether an action of judicial review and interdict would actually stop the effect of that legislation. Now, as you'll have seen with the Named Person Act, it is possible to put a halt on legislation when they think there's something wrong with it, and the challenge is regarding the criteria that was taken into account by the Commission. The Commission's decision cannot be challenged because it wasn't a decision, it was a recommendation, and only the Minister's decision can be subject to judicial review. So as of yesterday, that's where we were, but I will get as much information as I can and get back to you.
Okay, Jim McComb.
Thanks, Leader. I think we've got to remain consistent with the views expressed earlier in the year, and therefore, pursue this matter and find out just what the financial implications are. The Boundary Commission seemed to have this obsession with equalising voter numbers between wards, to the exclusion of considering the size and shape of the ward, and indeed the practicalities of managing the ward. That doesn't seem to feature in the calculation at all.
Okay, no, the first speaker. So we've got Graham Nichol first, and then Ronnie.
Thank you, Chair. I'm all in favour of pursuing this as far as we can, but not wasting too much money on it. If we get to a stage as it's, there's no point in going any further forward. But it was on a judicial, if a judicial review or a judicial question is put into place, does it have to be put in before the 30th of September if we're going to want a review of the decision, or can that, and if it does come in after the 30th of September, does that still stop? Would that still stop the legislation being enacted?
Those are the questions that were exercising us yesterday, and a judicial review could still happen after the legislation is in place, but it would be better if some action could be taken in order to stop it going that far, and they were asking Council's opinion on what that might be.
Yeah, but I think that's why East Renfrewshire question just now. Ronnie.
Thanks, Leader. I think we've got to pursue this. When I first got elected, there were 73 members, one member, one ward. And ever since then, the local democracy has suffered, I think. In fact, just on Saturday, I was at an event in Annan, and several people come up to me and still ask me, are you one of my councillors? And here we are. I know my ward isn't going to change its shape and number, but there's wards across everywhere where people are going to be more confused. So it doesn't lend itself to local democracy when you've got this constant change. And elected members are getting further and further away from the people they're supposed to represent. And I know some of the new wards are almost constituency size. And now that can't be right for local democracy. So I said this in March, whenever we discussed this, but I think we've got to fight this really up to the end. And I know we haven't got an open-ended checkbook, but we've got to do something. Even if I'd rather fight and lose than not fight at all.
Okay, Jim McClung back in, and then Alistair.
Yeah, thanks, Leader. I'll totally agree with what Councillor Ogilvy's just said, but at the end of the day, we are here with a paper in front of us that is saying note the decision of the Scottish Minister. So my question does relate to the question, the contents of the paper. Should it go ahead, we don't get a judicial review, we don't get it stopped, and bear in mind we've only got 10 days to get it stopped, will the councillors for Ward 2 sit in both area committees? Because their ward will cover both area committee areas. This is what the paper's about, is about the new wards.
I think we've got is you've got, you know, yes, 10 days, but you can get the judicial review after that. So I think that's been explained by the officers. Alistair?
Thanks, Leader. I would have to reinforce what Rona says about time really being of the essence. And the first piece of work that I was ever given to do when I went to private practice in 1996 was a judicial review against East Ayrshire Council and the process, or the failing process that they used to close a small Roman Catholic primary school in Hurlford. There were 4 grounds of appeal, and we won 3 of them, and the one that we lost the judicial review on was the ground known as Mora delay. And the delay was caused, of course, at the end of the day by the Scottish Legal Aid Board, taking an unconscionable length of time to decide whether or not the young women who were the petitioners would be granted legal aid. For the record, they ultimately didn't get it. So I think Rona's comment is well made, Leader, and should be acted upon with alacrity by this council. Time really is of the essence in that.
Can we go forward on this? That note the decision of Scottish ministers and follow through with Hosler and find out from East Renfrewshire Council where they are and see where we are. Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, I couldn't hear the mumbling between you and the clerk. So are you including there, taking note of the timescales?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Of course, that's why we're
qualified. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Sorry, Ronnie, are you going to write to the Minister and ask for a qualification of his?
I'll ask his detailed reasoning behind it. Okay?
We'll bring it back to members, Leader, given that there's an urgency.
Members won't be informed. Yep. As soon as I get word back and I'll find out what's going on, I'll email all members first and then I'll let them know, and then we can make the decision whether we need a further full council or whatever. Okay? Thank you. No.
I'm quite happy with what's been just said there, but just for the record, have we withdrawn delegation?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we did, didn't we? Didn't remember. Okay, thank you.